Oh, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Morrison, Cook County Commissioner here in the 15th District. Thank you all for joining us here today for our town hall on sexual assault awareness. I hope you all have been doing well and keeping healthy. This topic is incredibly important, but we want those watching to practice self-care since this is a sensitive subject. The past year has been tough, especially when it comes to seeking personal health services. I'm grateful that the Children's Advocacy Center, Lifespan, and the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault are here to help me raise awareness about the services someone who has experienced or is experiencing sexual assault can seek. We will share resources in the comments below. Please submit any questions you may have, and we'll answer as many as possible just during the discussion portion of today's conversation. With that, I'd like to welcome our guest speakers, beginning with Carrie Estrada, Executive Director of the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault, who will share more about what the center does. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Commissioner, for having us. Yes, my name is Carrie Estrada. I'm the Executive Director at the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault. Our main office is in Arlington Heights. We also offer services in Evanston and McHenry. So we offer a full array of comprehensive services for sexual assault survivors. That includes a 24/7 crisis hotline. So we're available to answer any kind of crisis calls from survivors. We offer 24/7 medical and legal advocacy. So that means when a survivor presents themselves at a hospital, we are called and show up at that hospital and provide these services to support the survivor through if they're going to get an evidence kit, if they are going to proceed legal charges, and just offering them support during that crisis time. If survivors want counseling services afterwards, we have free trauma-informed counseling for survivors as well as their significant others, because this can infect that whole family unit. And then we have a really great prevention education program where we're in the schools to get ahead of this insidious problem, offering body safety, talking to kids about consent, empowerment, and most importantly, letting kids know how to get help. So those are the array of services that we offer, and we're very happy to be here. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I really appreciate it. Next, I'd like to introduce Kate Schultz, Director of Clinical and Prevention Services for the Children's Advocacy Center of North and Northwest Cook County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for having us here today and for holding space for this invaluable conversation. The Children's Advocacy Center serves as one of the leading resources to empower and heal the abused child and to prevent violence against children. We offer free bilingual English-Spanish services that are trauma-informed to children and to families who have experienced abuse and neglect. Our main office is located in Hoffman Estates, and we have satellite offices in Evanston and Northbrook, and also in Streamwood. We serve 38 communities in Cook County, and the CAC was created essentially to help reduce the amount of times that children were having to share their story of abuse and neglect. Prior to the creation of CACs, children were having to tell their story up to 15 times, which, as you can imagine, is really triggering for kids to have to go over it again and again. And it also reduced the validity of their disclosures. So with the CAC, the hope is that children can come to the CAC, tell their story one time, and would reduce the effects of having to talk about it again and again. The CAC has several programs that we offer services to family. The first program I want to talk about is our Forensic and Advocacy Services program. So this is where we offer those forensic interviews for when a child makes a disclosure of abuse. They would reach out to DCFS or to the police, and then those agencies would reach out to us to schedule a forensic interview that would happen at our center. We also offer advocacy services, both day of and follow-up, including court advocacy. We do case management to connect those families with resources within the community and refer them if they need a medical exam or if they need counseling services. In 2019, we served 926 clients in this program, and in 2020, we served 902. Two counseling programs that we have, one is Family Support Services and one is Safe from the Start. So Family Support Services works with children 6 to 17 who have experienced primarily sexual abuse, but also have experiences of exposure to family violence or physical violence. There's a lot of comorbidity with those issues that we see in the families that come in. We offer individual, group, and family therapy services in that program. And in 2019, we served 207 clients in the FSS program and 184 in 2020. For our Safe from the Start program, that works with the little kids. It's trauma-informed services for those really young kids, birth to 5, who've been exposed to family violence or had experience of sexual or physical abuse. And we really want to address that attachment and attunement that can often be disrupted in situations of violence. So in 2019, we served 142 clients in that program, and in 2020, we served 152. Finally, we have a prevention program where we are going into schools. Right now, we're working with District 21, with ECDAC and District 86, and hoping to expand as we're able to. And we're supporting the Aaron's Law mandate. So we've created a curriculum to talk about feelings and body parts and helpers and different types of touches. And it's really focusing on asking the children's input versus telling, and encouraging the recipients of that education, both the children and school personnel and staff, to really use critical thinking. So those are some of the services that we offer at the CAC.
Kate, thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to round out our guest speakers by introducing Jennifer Green, Director of Policy and Advocacy at Lifespan.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here with you, Commissioner, and our partners. We're excited. Lifespan's excited to partner up on this. Lifespan is a comprehensive service agency that has been operating in Cook County for over 40 years. We started primarily as a domestic violence program. One of the prominent things about Lifespan is that it couples legal services with counseling. And so we have an office in Des Plaines, and we also have an office in Chicago. We serve those who have experienced domestic violence as well as victims of sexual assault, and we have been serving victims of trafficking more recently, particularly as it intersects with domestic violence. And so at Lifespan, we have family law services, so we can do representation on protective orders, stalking no contact orders, civil no contact orders. In fact, Lifespan was one of the first organizations to do some appellate work around the civil no contact order, which is a protective order put in place for folks who have experienced sexual assault. We also do custody, shared parenting, parental allocation, and that is our specialty area. And we only serve victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and occasionally trafficking. And we also have a full immigration practice. And so there are many protections available for people who have experienced DV and sexual assault under the Violence Against Women Act. And so our immigration team is there to talk about those remedies and do representation on those remedies. Those services are coupled with a comprehensive counseling program where when we're not working remotely, the groups haven't worked as well remotely as they do in person, but we do group and individual counseling. And we also have a legal advocacy program, a criminal advocacy program that works in conjunction with the criminal legal system. And again, that program is active in both Chicago and the north and northwest suburbs. We work alongside and partner with and collaborate with NWCASA on those cases because we tend to both operate in Skokie and Rolling Meadows courthouses. And so they do the advocacy on the sexual assault cases, and we're just there to support when needed or work on the DV cases. We also do advocacy with law enforcement, and then policy and systemic advocacy. So a portion of our work is focused on convening the Northwest Suburban Alliance on DV, as well as looking at legislative initiatives and what initiatives are happening in Springfield that might impact victims, and joining all our partners, especially Kate and Carrie and the commissioner, on making that information known to the community members.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I greatly appreciated it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. It's been a day of, tough conversations as this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We began with seeing some friendly faces, many of which are on the town hall today during a legislative breakfast this morning. And so we're keeping things going. I just want all of those who are watching live to know if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in the comment box and we'll be happy to get those addressed. I did want to begin with a question for Kate. Is there any legislation that CAC is advocating for currently that you'd like to share about?
Sure thing. Thank you, Commissioner. So one piece of legislation that I recently became aware of that the CAC is strongly supporting is the REACH Act. And this is something that we spoke about this morning on the legislative breakfast. So just as a review, it's House Bill 1736, and it's the Responsible Education for Adolescent and Children's Health Act, or REACH Act. So the REACH Act would require age and developmentally appropriate, comprehensive, and inclusive personal health and safety education to be taught in public schools grades K through 12. It would not employ any gender stereotypes. It would not exclude the health needs of intersex individuals or individuals of diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, or gender expressions. So traditional sex education has very much been binary, male, female, and was not addressing the needs of those who are gender expansive. So sexual behavior is expansive, and sexual education needs to celebrate gender diversity and acceptance of all bodies. And the CAC is strongly in support of this. We've seen firsthand just the negative outcomes of not teaching children to know the medically accurate names for their body parts, to not know that they can set limits or boundaries with trusted adults, and really to struggle to understand what it means to respect the personal space of themselves and of others. And so often in situations of abuse, their choice about their body and what happens with their body is taken away from them. And so part of why we really support this is that the CAC wants to empower children to have choice over their body, to know the names of their body parts, to be able to talk about the boundaries that they have and how those evolve as they grow up, to not feel left out of the conversation if perhaps they identify differently than what their biological sexes that they were born with. So we want to make sure that they have comprehensive education that's also developmentally appropriate. So we believe that this bill is really helpful, and we support it and hope to see it go through.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Kate, and for the advocacy. We've been seeing a lot of transphobic policies being just recently implemented. I believe it was in Arkansas, and being pushed forward across the nation. So it's definitely important to get accurate information out to our communities. So I appreciate you sharing that. I do have a question for Carrie. What legislation is NWCASA advocating for this session?
Yeah, we have two House bills right now that we're focused on. House Bill 3265, and that is to clearly define rape crisis centers. There was some mix-up with the legislation for larger programs that serve sexual assault and domestic violence or homelessness, where they weren't giving what's called absolute privileged rights. And absolute privilege, I cannot underscore enough how imperative that is to the healing process. Most people probably don't know, but the rate in which these cases are prosecuted is dismal, using nice words. RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, puts it at only 5 out of every 1,000 rapists are ever even held accountable and incarcerated. So the rate in which that happens is absurd. So survivors must have control over their story. So what this law does is it will enforce rape crisis center staff maintain what's called absolute privilege, which means anything that survivor says to that center staff cannot be called into court and used against them. So because those numbers are so dismal in terms of getting any kind of criminal justice in our system, we have to focus on the healing of that survivor first and foremost. So absolute privilege is that imperative. And then the other bill that we're supporting is HB 3534, which really just enforces crime victims' rights. So these were on the books, but they were kind of tricky to enforce. So this is enforcing, again, protecting confidentiality of our therapy records. And then again, because of the low rate of prosecution, this offers survivors must be notified what's happening with the case. You have to notify the survivor, and then the survivor has a chance to speak with the state's attorney's office. And this might be the only chance that a survivor ever has to speak with someone in that criminal justice system. Lastly, and super important, is survivors deserve access to an advocate or a support person while they're going through this process. So incredibly important work in those bills. And please keep an eye on them. If people are willing to do a witness slip, we would very much appreciate that. Follow us on Facebook. We're really good at pushing that kind of information out as well.
I really appreciate you sharing that, Carrie. Thank you. And last but not least, Jennifer, I mean, maybe some of them have already been highlighted, but what are some of the legislative projects that you would like our viewers to know about that are being worked on at Lifespan?
Sure. It's great to go last on that question because my partner's already highlighted a bunch of them. So yeah, obviously everything they've highlighted. And I think all three of our organizations are particularly on Twitter promoting things that are happening in the legislation. A few that I'll highlight in addition to that is Faith's Law, which is House Bill 1975. That is being sponsored by Representative Michelle Mussman here in the Northwest suburbs with all of us. And that bill would really seek to do a couple of different things. It would require that a parent resource guide is developed for parents of students who might be experiencing violence, sexual violence, intimate partner violence in the schools, as well as some additional provisions around sexual misconduct in schools regarding teachers or coaches or parents who are in the school, or not parents, folks who are in the schools, to provide help and also look at employment history reviews when considering hiring. So that is one that we're really pushing. And, you know, we have a whole bunch that we're looking at that aren't related to sexual assault. And one I would just highlight is the TEACH Act, which is House Bill 0376. And that is requiring that there is curriculum added in both grade schools and high schools to study the events of Asian American history. And, you know, we are really, I think all of us on this call, finding how important that is with all of the anti-Asian hate, you know, the anti-Asian and hate incidents that we've seen pop up as a result of the pandemic and in the past year. And so I would just take the chance to highlight that as well.
No, I really appreciate that, Jennifer. And I think it goes without saying how incredibly important our rhetoric is for all of us in any type of leader positions, from schools to being a public figure. And so we all benefit from knowing a little bit more on how to use our words more appropriately. So I think that is critical. I have a question next up for Carrie. I understand NWCASA offers counseling services for survivors and their partners. What would you say to a couple who is considering counseling but not sure if it's for them?
Yeah, therapy is a super vulnerable experience, totally understood. Our therapists are experts in the field of sexual assault. They're definitely top notch. They understand the impact of trauma and are able to help navigate a couple through that. Because our services are free of charge, they're 100% voluntary. So my recommendation is call, make that connection. You know, we can get a better feel for what it is that that survivor might be looking for to best address their needs. And again, because the program is voluntary, you can try it a couple times. If it's not for you, you know, I would encourage the person to have that conversation with the therapist, and they can figure out, is it, you know, do they need a different fit of therapist? Or again, our main interest is in the healing of that survivor. So if it is not with us, we have an array of referrals to be able to refer out to. That's why our community partners right here on the phone, you know, we're able to seamlessly do referrals amongst our agencies. So give it a try. If it's not for you, that's okay. There's no penalty at all for trying that.
I appreciate that, Carrie. And next, we have a question from the audience. And so anyone who would like to speak up I'd appreciate your assistance in answering this question. It is, are you reaching out to School District 211, my alma mater? I'm a Conant High School graduate. The students have been really busy lately advocating for their own rights. Yes, Carrie.
Okay, sorry, I lost my mute button. Yes, we are in talks with District 211, and there will be more to come on that. I did attend that board meeting with our prevention educator, to hear the students' concerns. They are alarming, and we are willing to support that district and those students, most importantly. So that's a great question, and yes, we are here for that.
Kate, Jennifer, do you have anything more to add? If not, we can continue on to another question.
Nope, just that we work in schools, and anything Carrie needs and NWCASA needs from us, we'll be there to help.
I feel like after the pandemic, I needed to just find one of my high school districts to let me go and attend a day of classes just to see what it's like today. I remember, I graduated high school in 2009, so I know what high school was like during those 4 years I attended. I don't know how it's progressed and, what the current circumstances are today. And, I remember being called slurs in front of teachers in the hallways and not having, any teachers stand up against them or say anything. And so it is definitely troubling, but I'm really glad to hear that Michelle Mussman is advocating for our students. I have another question. This one's for Jennifer. It is, I am so grateful that Lifespan staff are working to address gender-based violence that too many trans women, especially trans women of color, face. Can you share what that work looks like?
Sure. There are many of us in the community that do that work. And so really, when we think about violence against trans women, trans folks in general, female identified folks, we think about gender-based violence being part of a larger continuum of violence that happens in our communities. And we do serve members of the LGBT community for sure. And we are there to support them with all of the services that we have. We need to be really cautious and thoughtful, all of us who are providing services, though, about the kind of space that we are providing, the safety that we might have for them, making sure that there are services. And something that all of us try to do is provide services and ensure that our staff looks like, sounds like, talks like the people that we're serving, right? So that when they come to our offices or get on a Zoom call with us, as is more common these days, or in court, they're working with people who understand the specific needs that they might have. And so, yeah, just being very thoughtful about that, being part of larger community efforts that are advocating for LGBT folks, and being a part of that larger community discussion about the issues that are impacting the LGBT community, so that we're there. We know that we are a gender-based violence organization and that is our specialty. And so there are opportunities to teach our staff and talk to our staff about what it's like to serve the LGBT community. But it's equally important for us to then partner with the agencies that are specifically standing up to serve the LGBT community, to see how we can be a resource and a tool to help them when they're supporting people who might be experiencing gender-based violence.
I appreciate you sharing that. Just recently, one of my mentors is one of my former professors from DePaul University. I took so many of her classes, I ended up getting a minor in LGBTQ studies. And it was just fascinating learning from someone who was in the trenches fighting for LGBTQ rights. And, I mentioned, during my classes, I graduated from university in 2013, that the whole subject and education around the gender nonconforming or non-binary community, I mentioned, I don't remember much of that ever being discussed. And we were talking about just how quickly things have progressed in terms of learning about gender just in this last decade alone. And even back when I was in college, a lot of that was not part of the curriculum, and so much has changed. And so we have seen a lot of progress, but a lot more work to do. And that goes with my next question for Kate. As a follow-up to that, has CAC worked with cases involving gender expansive children who are identifying with a gender different than the one assigned at birth? If so, are there resources CAC can share with them and their family as they continue on that journey of embracing their gender identity?
Sure. So, while the CAC does not necessarily provide any expertise in gender therapy, we do promote an open and supportive atmosphere for our families. Our background in trauma work allows us to walk alongside our clients as they're figuring out any confusing or conflicting thoughts and feelings and reactions as they relate to gender identity and sexual orientation. Many of the clients that we serve who are sexual abuse trauma survivors really need a space in which they can examine and explore gender, sex, and identity apart from the abuse that they endured. We do have experience supporting parents who have children that identify as non-binary and working through all of the thoughts and questions that come with that. So while our focus is really on treating the trauma of sexual abuse or exposure to violence, if gender identity concerns do arise, we have strong relationships with other community partners like Kenneth Young Center or JCFS, and would seek collaboration on those cases to ensure that that family is receiving as much support as possible.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I don't think there has been a single town hall I have done virtually during this pandemic where Kenneth Young has not been brought up. So kudos to Kenneth Young and for all those incredible services that are provided through their different facilities. The next question I have is for Jennifer. How did the pandemic affect the legal services that Lifespan provides?
Yeah, I will just kind of talk broad-based about all of our services in the pandemic. The legal services for sure were massively impacted by court operations, right? So we have attorneys who are working in family law, attorneys who are working in immigration law, advocates who are working in the criminal legal system. And in those first few months, operations just sort of ground to a halt. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what was safe. 555 West Harrison in Chicago was working every day to implement safety protocols. Skokie, Rolling Meadows protocols were changing. So it's kind of crazy to think back to a year ago and how overwhelming everything felt at this moment, and how all of us in this field were terrified by the number of people that we knew were going to be trapped in places where they couldn't access services, right? So the three of us all think about this, but we also think about it from different perspectives. And I know Kate and Carrie will talk about it. But for us, the courts didn't know what to do, right? And all of the operations that had put in place for police response to domestic violence and sexual assault weren't working, right? Weren't safe. We're not deemed safe. We had survivors who didn't want to go to court, who didn't want to go to police stations. We had officers who wanted to investigate but didn't know if it was safe to even be in the same room with a victim, right? And so over the last year, we've seen a lot of different things happen, a lot of adjustments being made by the courts at different times. There have been times when we've gotten 4 new court orders in a month about what's happening at a courthouse. And so for us, part of it is really monitoring that and seeing what's happening so that we have the best up-to-date information. Part of it is making sure that we're supporting our victims who may not have access to the traditional things that they've had access to, finding new ways to be able to communicate with them, right? We can't just jump on Zoom if we don't know that Zoom meets our confidentiality requirements or is safe. And we knew that there were more people being isolated than ever before. And then we also were thinking about our own staff, right? Many of whom are survivors, many of whom have children, many of whom had their whole daily world impacted. So yeah, I feel like we could talk for 3 hours about the pandemic and impact on the gender-based violence our communities, people who are experiencing gender-based violence, and the service community. But I will not spend this whole time talking about it because I know Kate and Carrie probably both also have different perspectives based on their specific populations.
Oh gosh, I'm just having so many flashbacks, Jennifer, over this past year. I almost feel like I was about to get emotional as you were detailing, all those impacts, and what a whirlwind and chaotic moment in history we have all just lived through. And so, again, I want to thank all three of you for the services that are being provided because they are crucial. But my next question I'm gonna put for Carrie, based on how the pandemic has impacted NWCASA's work. What opportunities do you see for expanding access to crisis services, or anything else you want to elaborate in terms of that impact this past year?
Yeah, it has been a year. Because of the nature of our services, we did not have an option to even pause. This work did not pause, and that's really a testament to staff in this field. It has been really, really difficult. If you think back a year ago, therapists are holding all of this pandemic anxiety for clients that have experienced trauma, while the therapist and the rest of the staff is going through this trauma with the rest of the world, so that has been incredibly difficult. We did not have an option or desire to pause. So our 24/7 crisis hotline did continue without interruption. Our medical advocacy looked a little bit different in terms of being able to offer virtual support, and that was because we just didn't know what was happening in the world, in the hospitals, what was safe, is it okay to have all these people in a hospital room? So now that we have a whole lot more information about that, I feel like our community's done a decent job of trying to get safety precautions in order. So we are, NWCASA is allowing time for staff to be able to get vaccinated if that's what they're choosing to do, so that we can get back to business. Our goal is to have all of our in-person medical advocacy services available again in June. So currently we are providing that support virtually, but in June we are looking to go back face-to-face in the hospital if that survivor is comfortable with that. Otherwise, we'll continue virtual. Also in June, we're looking at bringing back our therapy clients that cannot do the trauma work at home or virtually for a slew of different reasons. Sometimes their home is not safe. Sometimes they need to be in an office so that the therapist can re-regulate and co-regulate with them, because it's just not safe to do that in a virtual setting. So we're going to do a slow reopen. We're going to bring back those clients because, again, we don't want waiting rooms filled. We still have to be super uber cautious in keeping our community safe as well. So we're trying to do that slow rollout. July is when choice is going to be given to clients. If clients are comfortable with in-person services, we are welcoming of that. We've got a ton of PPE. We're doing it as safely as possible. So those survivors that are comfortable coming back into the office, we will be offering that in July. Clients that aren't comfortable coming in, maybe they've got co-occurring medical conditions, whatever that may be, we will continue the virtual services for them as well. Our prevention education is likely to finish these services virtually for the end of this school year. And then we're not positive what next year will look like. I'm really proud that our services are flexible to be able to meet the needs of the community. So again, for clients that are comfortable coming in, yes, clients that aren't will be able to do virtual. So we'll see how that shakes up in the schools as well. But I think flexibility during this pandemic has really been a saving grace to be able to meet the needs of our community and keep people as safe as possible.
I agree, Carrie, and thank you for sharing that. And it is exciting to hear that some changes are ahead, and hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel to hopefully return to some semblance of normal order in our daily lives. So that is good news indeed. And the next question I'm going to pose to Kate, and I just want to say, as someone who has went to therapy myself and who is a strong advocate I believe that we really need to do more to get folks to know that going to things like therapy is actually a strength, not a weakness. Helping with your mental health is a strength, and we as public servants all need to do a better job of getting that message out to our communities. And so this question is, how did the pandemic affect therapy sessions? Sorry, tongue twister. How did the pandemic affect therapy sessions that CAC provides?
Oh, like Jen said, I feel like we could talk about this for hours. I echo a lot of the things that Carrie and Jen have already said about just the impact of the pandemic on services provided. But I think specifically for the CAC, it looked like a transition to 100% teletherapy services. So our clinical services haven't stopped. We've continued to offer them, but that transition was a massive learning curve for clinicians and clients alike. So a lot of our clients don't have access to regular internet services, don't have access to up-to-date technology that allows them to utilize those platforms that we were engaging with in the beginning with Microsoft Teams and then later Zoom. So that was a challenge in trying to figure that out. And, you know, much like what has already been said, there was a lot of safety concerns for children that were living in homes with the offender. We know that continues to happen, or living with unsupportive caregivers. So there were some major concerns about whether or not they could really engage in the work. And families didn't always have the option to provide private space for family members, especially if the caregiver was at home with all of the kids who were doing e-learning. You know, the possibility to be able to break out into private space was challenging. And really, I think one of the biggest things that we saw with the families that we served was really that they were facing loss of access to their basic needs. So they were struggling with, am I going to have a consistent place to live, or am I going to lose my place because I can't pay rent? Am I going to get evicted? Food shortage, just being able to provide for my family. And so when you think about that hierarchy of basic needs, if those aren't being met, really to engage in trauma therapy feels kind of like a luxury that a lot of our families didn't have. So for our clinicians, it looked like really pivoting with the services that we were offering, and instead just showing up and holding space for them as they were processing that collective trauma that we're talking about that everyone is experiencing because of this pandemic, right? Which we're happy to provide, but that also meant that they were having to contain that initial trauma that brought them into the center. So if there were any symptoms related to that, those didn't just go away, but unfortunately they weren't able to work through them because it was just trying to get through the day and the week. So that was really challenging. And, it's also been talked about how when we're doing trauma work in the office, there's containment there, and we can read what's going on, all those nonverbal cues. When you're doing this virtually, it's very two-dimensional. A lot is lost. And so we're sitting there trying our hardest to read what's going on. We've got families that, again, can't access video therapy or just don't feel comfortable because of their trauma history getting on the camera. So there is certainly a lot that is lost in doing it. But I'm so proud of all of our clinicians for persevering and continuing to offer services. We haven't had a break, as I said. And, I think in terms of returning to in-person services, we're still trying to figure out the timeline for that. Our Streamwood location actually is looking for a new space to call home. We are losing our office space there. They're selling the building. So, I think part is trying to find a stable space that we can bring clients back to so that there's not a lot of interruption in services if we're, starting in Streamwood and then relocating someplace else. But also because of the way that we do therapy, we do a lot of family work where each family member is teamed. So we'll have lots of people in the office at the same time. So just trying to be really thoughtful about the safety of our clients and also of our staff when we're talking about bringing back, but certainly considering options, looking at numbers, and hopeful for when that day will come.
I appreciate you sharing that, and good luck on the new office search.
Thank you.
My gosh, I tell you, it has been a very difficult year, and I understand that whole two-dimensional aspect. When I finally see someone in person, when I have the chance, and definitely more so recently, it is just, God, it is in itself a little bit of therapy and healing to see someone face to face again. But I want to put out there for all those who are tuning in live today, if you have any questions for any of our guests, please feel free to put those questions in the comments. I do have a question for all of you today. Now, unfortunately, because I'm a commissioner and a part-time law student, I don't have much free time at all. And so I have not seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer. But I've heard great reviews about Promising Young Women. Is one of the most acclaimed films of the year, and it addresses sexual assault and violence. Have any of you seen this movie? And if so, what were your takeaways? And any of you could jump in first.
I can jump in. I definitely saw it. Yeah, my first takeaway is a bit of a roller coaster, right? As someone who's advocated for, victims for 25 years, there were certainly parts in the beginning that I was cheering, appreciated the dark humor, thought that I, really appreciated some of what was happening in the discussion. And it really felt like as the movie went on, it obviously got a little bit more difficult to watch. And, no spoilers for people who haven't seen it. I would say see it. But overall, I would say that I think it's a fascinating way to present the issue and start conversations. So I'm glad you asked about it, because I think it looks at sexual assault in a way that we haven't seen sexual assault looked at before, particularly in the way that it addresses men and their role in this advocacy movement. And I'll let the other two speak more.
Yeah, I'm with Jennifer. That like revenge fantasies, like that's a real thing, thinking of it through that way. So it was definitely an interesting way to present that material. The ending got a little bit weird, wasn't, definitely, I don't know, just to tie it up a little bit nicer, better. It did really highlight, though, the devastation of sexual assault. That woman was just, sorry, I don't want to do the spoilers. It's just really devastating. The other part about the film that I did appreciate was, over 90% of survivors have some sort of trusting relationship with that person. So I like that it was, it wasn't this like stranger danger, people jumping out of alleys or whatnot. She had relationships with these people that the assault was about to happen with. So I did appreciate that part of the film as well.
Well, I think you both for sure. And Kate, did you want to add anything? I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I haven't watched it yet. No, I did watch the trailer and was hoping to catch it this week, but it's definitely on my watch list, especially after this conversation.
I know. After seeing the trailer, I think I want to watch it too. I find it quite interesting, especially just like we've discussed today, like aspects of grooming and how those have effects, and the mental trauma that you have from being a victim and being a survivor. It is. I thank you all for all the work and advocacy that you're doing here in the state of Illinois and here in the Northwest suburbs. It's crucial, and I know we're getting closer to the top of the hour, and I just want to make sure that I give you all an opportunity to do some final pitches, get any last information that you would like out there, or even open it up for discussion if you like. But I'll start with you, Carrie.
Great. Yes, please get involved in this mission. Again, these numbers are astronomical. We need help with this. There's a place for anybody to plug in. We have a solid volunteer program if you're wanting to join our mission. We can't do this alone. If you want to work face-to-face with survivors, we provide a 40-hour training. We're happy to help you feel capable to take hotline calls. If you want to answer our crisis line, there's ways to plug in that way. We also have some master level therapists that choose to volunteer some of their time for our survivors in that healing process, just because the power of healing. they feel that that's their way of giving back, and it's been really, really awesome for our center. You know, we do have a wait list for our therapy services, so if we can get help from the community on that, you know, we do offer support and supervision and that kind of thing. We do have an event this month. Please check out our Facebook, but we have a candlelight vigil. We are looking to cancel rape culture, and it's really important to learn about that stuff. Again, we are posting a whole lot this month. These are simple things that people can do in our community. It's just how we are talking about things. You know, there are ways to, certain books that you could read kids to help with consent, body autonomy. Please learn about that stuff. The tickets are only $15. There will be a survivor telling a story. We have some community members talking about this event. Again, that's only $15. There's a really cute candle that comes with that. And then in October, we have another large event that will be hosted in Evanston, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. And we also have openings on our board of directors. If you really want to roll up your sleeve and make an impact here, we are looking for that as well. So please follow us, get in touch with us, and I'm happy to connect you at whatever level anyone would like to volunteer and help support our community and sexual violence. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Carrie. Thank you so much. And would you be comfortable sharing what the Give Get is for a board of directors position?
You know what? We are doing some changes with our board of directors, and we don't even have that solid number yet. So it's a great time to make those positive changes. We're open to all the support that we can have.
Well, for all of our listeners who are potentially interested in that, please contact Carrie for more information. Kate, any last thoughts, any last plugs? Thank you again so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. I just want to say, if anyone has any questions about services, if you're needing support, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to offer support, even if you're not ready yet to give a lot of identifying information. That's okay. We can touch base over the phone or email. We understand that sometimes people aren't ready to move forward with services, but we want to be a support and connector if that is something that you're looking for. So we would encourage you to check out the website for contact information to reach out. In terms of other ways that you can get plugged in with the CAC, we do have a campaign right now called the Healing Hearts Campaign. This is a movement aimed to spread awareness to our communities that we serve and to raise money for services. So this looks like having a beautiful heart sculpture in your business or organization, or having a garden in your yard to start a conversation with a neighbor, or even a virtual heart garden. So there are lots of ways that you can get involved with this Healing Hearts campaign. Please check out our website, cachelps.org, cachelps.org for information. There are also plenty of volunteer opportunities, and you can also join a committee. So any support that you can offer to our agency, be it of your time or your passion or even fundraising efforts, whatever it may be, it will be greatly valued and appreciated, and we really appreciate your support and partnership.
Of course, thank you so much for sharing that. And last but certainly not least, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. Any last plugs, reminders, any last thoughts?
Sure. I will first of all say, listening to Carrie talk about volunteering on a rape crisis hotline is where I started way too many years ago for me to say the number, but it's a great experience to start learning and volunteering your time. So I'll make an extra plug for that. I just echo that this is such an important conversation for our communities to be having. I don't think we've talked enough about sexual assaults in the pandemic and the impacts. And I don't think we talk enough about it in our communities. So I really appreciate you hosting this conversation, Commissioner, because we tend to talk a lot more about domestic violence. We tend to talk a lot more about trafficking, and we just don't talk as much about sexual assault and all the ways that it happens in our community. So I just really appreciate that. In the vein of what others have shared, we're hiring lawyers. Lifespan is hiring lawyers right now. So if you want to make a switch, if you want to be a lawyer, check out our postings. You have all of our information for social media in the chat. We are doing a lot of posting around legislation right now because it is the session. So All of the pieces of legislation that we talked about are there. And also reach out for services. If you or someone you know is in need of services, we are here to help. And in the off chance that you are looking for services in the city, that is also our catchment area. So we do extend a bit beyond the north and northwest suburbs.
Oh, of course. Well, I just want to share my gratitude, Carrie, Kate, Jennifer. Thank you for all of your work and advocacy. I'm going to ask all three of you to stay on once we end the live stream. I want to find ways that I could offer myself off and be more useful to each of your organizations. But I do want to say for all of those tuning in today, this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. For our survivors out there, you are definitely not alone, and there are advocates with similar experiences who are willing and wanting to help you through into recovery. And so there is a lot of opportunities to learn more this month as it continues, and I hope all of us out there, especially cisgender men like myself who also could be victims of sexual assault or perpetrators or witnesses. Make sure that, if you are seeing things, be it in your classrooms or workplaces that you think are inappropriate and you're seeing mistreatment of others, find ways to have your voice be heard. And I know that allyship of those individuals would make an incredible and impactful difference. So thank you all again for joining us for this conversation. And for everyone out there, I hope you're keeping safe and healthy. Thank you again.